Welcome to the Social Media Church Podcast. I'm Neil Smith, and this is a very special episode. I know we have been away for a minute, and we have been working on some things behind the scenes. In this episode, I want to talk through a little bit of the history of Social Media Church Podcast. I'm going to talk about where we are and where we're going, but a big part of where we're going is our special guest today that is really not a guest. He is the new host of the Social Media Church Podcast. That is Matt Williams. Matt, thanks for joining us.
It's good to be here. I'm glad to be with you.
Yeah, I am excited for the Social Media Church family to get to know you. I want to give some history, Matt, to you and to our listeners of how this all came about and what our journey has been through the years. And I mean, we are now probably 14 years old as a podcast. It started with my good friend DJ Chuang, who wanted to document basically online church and where things were developing. I got to be the second guest on the podcast. Kenny Jang unfortunately beat me to be the first guest on the podcast, and he was at the time the online pastor at Liquid Church in New Jersey. I was the online pastor at Community Bible Church in San Antonio, and it's been a fun journey to be a guest. And then a couple years in, DJ reached out, or he and I were having a conversation. I was like, "Hey, DJ, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. Would love your advice." He's like, "Why don't you just take mine? I'm ready. I'm a starter, but I'm ready to hand the reins." And and I guess probably maybe shortly after that, I was having dinner with Jay Cranda from Saddleback Church with DJ at Jay's house in I guess Orange County. And DJ was telling Jay about what we're doing. He's like, "Hey, can I get in on this?" So Jay co-hosted the podcast with me for a couple of years, and as life does, he got very busy, needed to transition out. My good friend Aaron Magnuson jumped in as a partner, and then we just kept developing the podcast. So me and Aaron were hosts of the podcast. We got to know DK Hammonds. DK, he was a legend on the app community. I don't know if that was Clubhouse. And DK, we just, part of being, he was a pioneer in social media. And so we connected, joined the podcast. He became a good friend. He stepped in also to help lead Amplify for a season. And so he helped kind of carry the baton. And simultaneously, I, over the last 6 months, have gotten crazy busy in my new role with Faith Driven Entrepreneur. I'll talk about that maybe a little bit later here in the podcast. But that led to a friendship over the last year or so with Matt Williams. Matt is, I'm going to let Matt introduce himself, but he's become a great friend. He really is an incredible digital strategist with an incredible ministry heart, ministry mind. And so we're going to continue the podcast. What I, as I go back on history, though, it started as a focus on online church. We're going to still talk about online church, but really began to move to social media. As really social media was not just something that like you separate your digital from your online. It just became a part of every church, and especially through the pandemic. And I think every church needs to look at how do we have a great, strong digital presence and social media. The average American is spending over 2 hours a day on social media. It's a significant platform for community building and outreach, and honestly, even for discipleship and fellowship. And so how do we maximize these tools to accomplish our ministry objectives? That's the core to this podcast, trying to help you and to have conversations with ministry leaders around social media and how we can learn from each other and have this collective learning. So let's get into the podcast. Let's get to know Matt and then what is going to be happening just set the stage moving forward is Matt is going to host this podcast and really lead this conversation into the future. Matt is also going to be leading Amplify social media. For those that maybe aren't familiar, I started a digital marketing agency for churches and ministries about 14 years ago called Amplify Social Media. We've had the privilege of working with probably now, over 100 ministries. Maybe claims to fame was our first client was getting Nick Vujicic, if you're familiar, an incredible evangelist, a good friend. And we got to be a part of his journey of really growing on social media. If you're watching on YouTube, I've got his silver plaque from YouTube behind me, as he got the gold one. He shared the silver one with me. But we've had an incredible time serving Nick and then serving so many different ministries. And Matt is going to be carrying that baton as well. So he's going to be leading this podcast and leading our team at Amplify moving forward. But let's get into the conversation. Let's get to know Matt a little bit. Matt, who are you? What do you do? Where are you from? Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for this next chapter, Nils. I know our friendship is real and it's been awesome. I started out as a client, just a cold outreach via your website, and one phone call led to another, and then I got to be a client for over a year, and out of that, this friendship happened, which is awesome. And now this partnership in addition to the friendship. So I'm excited about that. So kind of the high level bullet point bio, if you will, is grew up in Michigan. Baseball and sports are a huge through line of my entire life. And so I was a baseball player growing up, got pretty decent at it, and ended up going to Duke University, started for 4 years there as a catcher. And really importantly, at Duke, that's where I met my wife. And she's
very
from
important.
yes, exactly. The highlight of Duke for sure was Kristen, my wife. And so she's from the Kansas City area. And after we graduated, we got engaged and I followed her to Kansas City. But before I moved to Kansas City, I got to see my dream come true and got drafted by the Chicago Cubs back in 2009. And that was a really special thing to see that dream come true. And baseball has just been a huge part of my life. And the thing about baseball, though, and I was a catcher, my at the ripe old age of 22, my knees really were not feeling too good. And I was kind of doing the math and thinking about the fact of what it's going to take to try to make a run at the big leagues. And I just didn't think I could make it physically. So decided to go out on my own terms and officially retire. So I'm technically retired from my first job. I retired at the age of 22. No pension, no big money or anything like that. But it's kind of funny to say I had to retire.
I love it.
And so moved to Kansas City. And then the question is, what's next? What was next? I really, that's been a wrestling match in my mind for a long time, is like, what's my purpose here on earth? And I love work. I love being a part of, a mission. I love being on a team. And so really trying to do that identity soul searching process of what does this look like moving forward post baseball. So I had a guy who discipled me really intentionally in college. I was fortunate. I grew up in a church. My parents set amazing Christian examples for me. The way I like to describe it, though, is I prayed for a savior at church camp when I was 13. And then I prayed for a Lord when I was 22. So I knew I wanted to go to heaven early on, but it took me a while to kind of connect those dots to say, actually, the second part of that coin is not just Savior, it's also Lord.
Yeah.
And guy who discipled me in college made a huge impact on me. And I was like, I think I want to go into ministry. And at the time, I was like, well, that means I need to work for a church. Maybe start looking at seminary. That's what ministry was. So my first job after pro ball was I was a student ministries administrative assistant at Church of the Resurrection in Kansas City. And
I don't think I knew that. Fascinating. Student ministries, setting up chairs. That is not the role that I would put you in, but that's how you get your foot in the door.
It was a foot in the door. Yeah, it's crazy how when you look back and you see what the doors that opened and the way God works through opportunities in ways that you can really, in my experience, only see in hindsight. The ways that he's connecting dots and opening doors and making connections. And so that.
Duke to minor league baseball to student ministry administrative assistant. That is quite a path.
Yeah. And student ministries, it was a very low hourly wage, and my wife was a medical student at the time. So I was an administrative assistant, and I was a part-time bagel slicer out of Brugger's Bagels.
I love it.
So, yeah, it was good. It was a formative experience. I definitely had
formative is a good word.
Yeah, I had more than a few like, what just happened? Because now I'm like setting up chairs and going to Costco for youth retreats and doing all the important but administrative tasks and slicing bagels for people that are angry that they're waiting in line too long.
Yep.
So formative, but also trying to figure out what's next. And so then, I did a college campus ministry internship for a year. Then after that, came out of that, went back to Resurrection, working with college age and young adults. And that process of working through college age and young adults, God was really working on my heart. I started coaching youth baseball in the summers, because just trying to make some side income. And when I started coaching youth baseball, I was like, oh my gosh, this is youth ministry. This is baseball. This is ministry. Some of the work we were doing at the church, I was really thinking hard about what is work? What is the theology of work? What is ministry? And so my perspective started to broaden in terms of what ministry could look like.
Yeah.
And long story short, after about a year and a half of working at Resurrection and then also starting a youth baseball club, I took the plunge and went full-time coaching and running a small business with two other guys, building up a youth baseball club. And that led to that decision led to almost a decade of being an entrepreneur in the youth baseball space, in the youth sports space. So started the youth baseball club, started another business, and was coaching, was just kind of, I like to say I had 6 part-time jobs to make up a full-time ish income, because I wanted to do work that mattered. And at the time I was like, I was really trying to leverage what that baseball experience could do. And that the fun part about that journey is, as an entrepreneur, as I know, as and pastors, honestly, they're entrepreneurs whether they know it or not, because they're wearing 17 hats, especially small churches where you got to do everything. And I was the guy that raised my hand to say, I'll learn WordPress and learn how to build a website. I'll set up our Twitter accounts. I'll go to YouTube University and also like the school of experience in terms of like that worked and that didn't work. Let's learn from that. So that started my digital media journey as a quote unquote digital media professional, just bootstrapping and learning because we needed it for the businesses that I was trying to build, and did that for a while. And honestly, like if I could still see my kids and make enough money, like I'd probably still be coaching kids in baseball. Like it's a true joy and passion for me. But my wife and I started having our own kids, and my wife's a doctor. And so we had a few conversations where the gist of the conversation, and it's all love and it's all good. So I'm not, it's not negative, but Kristen was kind of looking at me like, so I'm the breadwinner and then I come home and then you leave and you're coaching other people's kids and you're not home with our kids. And it wasn't a good family equation. So I started looking for business hours jobs, and thought I needed to stay in the baseball industry because, I think the last 3 to 5 years, God's done some significant work in my heart and my soul in terms of my identity. But at the time I was like, I don't know what else to do other than baseball. That's where I can bring value, and I don't know where else. So ran a baseball facility and worked for a baseball softball tournament company. And that was a 18-month masterclass in how not to run a company and what a toxic work environment looks like and feels like. And it was, that's a longer conversation for another time, but it was a really, again, formative, but not positive experience. And so it got so bad that I just left with nothing, no backup plan. I was just like, I can't be here. And so, a couple months after I left, we have a nanny, we have 3 kids at the time. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I reach out to, my former boss at Resurrection, who had become a friend and mentor as well. And I was like, hey, I need a reference because I'm looking for a job. And he's like, well, why don't you come meet me? I got a job at the church. And the fun part is I was like, I had no intentions of going back to working for the church, but they needed a digital web specialist, and they were building new websites, on WordPress. And that's what I was familiar with. And so back in March of 2022, started at Resurrection and been focused on digital media, social media, website, email marketing at Resurrection since then. And that kind of brings us to today. I know I mentioned that we met as when
Yep.
Resurrection and I was a client, but
Yeah.
I just really, I love content, and digital media has been important.
Yep.
There's parts of my life where, my wife and I lived in Boston for a year,
Yep.
for her fellowship, and I was a stay-at-home dad, and digital content was my lifeline. I mean,
Yes.
my phone was like the pastor that I didn't have,
Yep.
because I had podcasts, I had books, that I had two kids under two by myself in an apartment in Boston, like really in a tough spot mentally.
Yep.
Digital content was a way for me to survive. And so now that we're looking at the year 2025, and what does the church look like? And by church, I mean the people of God, the capital C church. Like, what does that look like in 2025? And
Yep.
you said this earlier, people spend an obnoxious amount of time on
Yes.
social media, and social media defined broadly like digital media, whether that's YouTube, social media,
Yep.
scrolling, getting to a website from a social media post, whatever it is.
Yep.
And as the church, we got to figure that out, because Jesus calls us to go where the people are. And in 2025 and beyond, the people are in digital worlds a lot. So
Yes.
what does it look like to bring the message of Jesus to digital media spaces, one
Yes.
post, one church, one community at a time? And I just have a passion for that. And so
Yeah.
trying to figure that out, trying to help people with
Yep.
Amplify, trying to do that
Yep.
with my job at the church, and then this podcast, really just trying to have conversations and share learning. It's
Yep.
something that I am passionately excited about, because it's hard, but
Yep.
we got to do it. And
Yes.
so that might be more than you asked for, but that's
No, it's
that's
exactly.
the
I
overview.
want to dig into a couple of things that you mentioned, because I think you're so where I think many leaders are. One of the things that I love is and I feel like we've never done on this podcast is just claim that we have all the answers. What we're trying to do is have a collective conversation, and what I heard you say is like, I see the opportunity and I'm trying to figure out how to maximize it. And I think that's so much of what we're doing. And I think right now, I think a lot of our conversations have begun and will continue to veer into AI. What are the opportunities in AI, and how do we integrate that? But also, I think the conversation we have to continue to wrestle with, and I love it. And these are some of the great conversations you and I've had privately, personally, is what are some of the unhealthy sides? You've got younger kids than I do, but I'm like, man, I don't like how much time my kids are spending on social media.
Yeah.
I don't like the effects of some of these things to my own, mental well-being. And so there's good and bad with this. And I think we in this space are creating a conversation. This is where we don't want this conversation to be a one-way conversation that people listen to. We want this to be a dialogue that people are having online. And I think it's also one of the reasons where when you came on with the Amplify, I was like, part of what I need from you is for you to revive this conversation on social media church, because we've let it go stagnant here. And I'm just going to own that as the person who has led this charge for so many years. So I allowed my busyness to stall this conversation. And I'm so excited for you out of your one of the things I love about you, Matt, is your curiosity. And I think that's the core of what will make this a great conversation moving forward, is leaning into as we talk to different people. And one of the things, I think I want to just, double click on is your, is Resurrection Church. And one of the things I have loved about working with you at the Resurrection Church is, I think people know I go to Hillsong Church. I'll talk about it a lot. We have worked at Amplify with Transformation Church, is very well known, more, I don't know, we call it modern church, or flashier church, more charismatic church. Resurrection is like, it's not uncommon to see your pastor in a robe, on a Sunday. A more traditional church, but it's also the largest United Methodist church in the country, and so it is the very distinct church. And you have had to navigate of how do we learn from each other? What is Resurrection learn from Transformation Church, and what, in my seat of what can Transformation learn from Resurrection, and how do we share some of these unique insights while, as a greater, capital C church, how do we learn together while we're going to reach different people in different ways? And the internet is such an amazing thing, because the reality is we're all on it, we're all using it, and there are unique opportunities for all of us. Matt, well, let's focus in on you a little bit when it comes to your learning. When it comes to social media, digital engagement, where have you leaned into? You mentioned the what do you call it, YouTube University, but
Yeah.
I'm curious, are there key podcasts you go to, books you've read? Where have you learned the things you did to get to where you are?
I love that question. Yeah, I'm a self-described content junkie. Like I love good content. I like to read. I've bought way too many courses,
Yeah.
finished
Yep.
some of
Give us
them.
some titles. Give us some titles of best books, best podcasts, best YouTube channels. What are your go-tos?
Yeah. So let's start with, I can't like the foundation of how I think about communicating, um, pretty much in my life, let alone in marketing or any form of business realm, is the story brand concept.
Yep.
I was a very early adopter of. I bought Donald Miller's course 10
Yep.
years ago.
Yep.
When he was just, I bought Storyline, which was the precursor to
Yeah.
Story Brand,
Yeah.
and so I mean, you'll hear it; it'll just come out. But I think, for my money, Story Brand is the best marketing framework that there
100.
is out there.
100.
And
Have you
I,
gone to their AI tool, by the way? That's
yeah, it's
online.
good.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's
Unbelievable.
really, and I just love the way Donald Miller communicates. I think he's tapped into, and you've seen a lot more people pop up with that,
Yep.
talking about the power of story, but
Yep.
the original social media was people standing around a well or a watering hole or in the town square, just like talking to people.
Yep.
And the memorability, the stickiness of their words,
Yep.
or their stories, that's how the message got passed along. Humans have been
Yeah.
telling stories since, the second that God gave us consciousness. So Donald Miller and Story Brand is kind of the foundation for how I think about, communicating and tapping into the power of story. And maybe we'll just run through. Maybe that's a good episode for one of these. Just run
Yep.
through the
Yep.
seven parts of the story
I
brand
love that. I
script
love
framework.
that. Yes.
And all the credit to Donald Miller.
Yep.
We're not like a paid affiliate of him. He's just, his content's just impacted
It is.
everything in terms of how I think about
And
it.
I think it translates so well. I think sometimes people think this is for business, but really, it's a great framework to really just who's the hero, who's the guide.
Mhm.
How do we position our brand? And I think sometimes we don't like that language in church, but at the end of the day, it's how do we position our church? Let's just maybe change the language a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's yeah, I love Story Brand.
So
Yeah,
that's
what
number
else?
one.
Where else?
I've been following Gary Vaynerchuk for a long time.
Yep.
And just to all the people listening, I mean, if you don't like cussing, then, you know, consider yourself fairly warned. I spent
Yep.
so much of my life in baseball dugouts that,
Yep. It's
I
funny.
it doesn't bother me. But Gary V is, he's a big influence on me because, he's just, I mean, he's really good. He's got a huge team, so he's always at the absolute, front edge of what's coming, and just his posture and his belief in the power of social media to connect people and to share stories and messages, and just because he gets really granular in terms of tactics and
Yes.
techniques, and also philosophical in terms of why you should be there and how you should listen. So Gary V's been, he's been a big
Yeah.
marketing influence as well. And then,
So Matt, I got a
lately,
confession to make before you go to your next one.
okay,
I believe I feel like I have mostly created a career on the back of translating Gary V because Christians don't want to listen to his cussing. So I just
yeah,
took out the cussing and have a more toned down personality to Gary V. But I am just regurgitating Gary. I read his book Crush It probably 15 years ago, and I was
yeah,
like, this is the answer. To
yeah,
if we apply this to Christian ministry, and I have been following his frameworks since reading that book, and I'm with you, Gary V. But I think you give a good, like there, you're going to be offended. If you're not offended, I would maybe question your salvation a little bit because there should be some offense. I'm not really going to question anybody's salvation, but it's it goes deeply offensive. But yeah, yeah,
and his newest book, Day Trading Attention,
yeah,
is really good. And
yeah,
because I think social media now. I've heard, I can't remember. I know Gary Vee has said this, and I've heard it a few other places, but it's people are starting to describe social media as not social media, but interest media.
Yep.
Like what are people interested in? And then the algorithms, with just how freakish those algorithms are, they
Yes.
figure out what you want and then they just feed that to you. So
Yep.
sometimes what I do is, you know, I'm careful because I don't want to send the wrong impression. But like I was working on here's an example. I'll try to play the algorithm a little bit on Instagram or X or wherever I'm at. And
Yep.
so I was working on a workshop for youth baseball or youth sports coaches. And so for about 2 weeks, I went through and I just liked every possible youth sports post on Instagram I could find, because then for like 2 weeks, the algorithm was just like pumping me with youth sports and youth baseball content. So kind of tapping into the fact that the algorithms are going to give you what you want. So sometimes I
Yes.
try to manipulate it on purpose. But I think his day trading attention book has been, every time I will wholeheartedly admit that I have a love-hate relationship with social media. Like I love it, and also it's really hard and it can be really challenging, especially trying to think about how to break through the noise. And
Yep.
so every time I'm down on social media and I'm like, why do we do this? Then like Gary Vee brings me back and he's like, no, this is important and it's possible. And so,
Yeah.
um, maybe
So
if you don't like listening,
I want to do an episode, Matt. I'm going to send you a link and we'll drop it in the show notes. But
yeah,
let's do an episode where I interviewed Gary Vaynerchuk 12 years ago.
wow,
And it's on my YouTube channel. There's no video. This is actually when we did phone call interviews.
wow,
And I don't know how I got to. I don't even remember now. But somehow a friend of mine said, "Hey, do you want to interview Gary Vee? 5-minute phone call interview." Like, count me in. So it's
yeah,
on my YouTube channel. But let's do an episode where we're like, was Gary Vee right? Because
yeah,
it's the cleanest Gary Vee that's ever gotten out there. It only, I'm looking at it right now, only has 125 views on YouTube 12 years later.
okay.
So I did not do a good job of putting it out there, but I want to maximize that
That's a
conversation.
great idea for a future
So
episode.
yeah, yeah. So with lots of new content coming out. Where
Yeah.
anywhere else you're learning your go tos?
So very recently, in the last year or so, I've been watching Diary of a CEO and Stephen Bartlett as closely as possible. They he has his main channel,
Yep,
that is Diary of a CEO, and I'm kind of I don't know what he's doing, but he at least had this channel called Behind the Diary,
yep,
where it was a weekly sort of like behind the scenes vlog episode. And he said they're coming back with weekly episodes, and it's been like a month, so probably got some team transitions and
yep,
stuff. But um, I think they're fascinating to watch because they're experimenting at an elite level, and watching what they do and going from, the podcast has only been around for 4 years and they're at 10 million YouTube subscribers.
yep.
Um, so that's been crazy. And then speaking of YouTube, I think, I still scroll through Instagram. I like I like to read. I'm the opposite of a lot of people in the sense that I'd probably rather read than watch a video.
Okay.
Um, I I have a complicated relationship with X
Yeah,
because it can be a really dark place,
yep,
but when I take the time to curate some lists and not
yep,
try to go down
yep.
the dark rabbit holes,
Yes.
X can be really
Yeah.
can be really
Agreed.
good. But YouTube, I think when we're talking about social media and social media church on this podcast, I mean, I think YouTube is a social media platform,
Yes.
and we need to talk seriously about that. And YouTube's become, um, probably the platform where I spend the most time.
Yep.
And so in a lot of it, sometimes it's just random, baseball accounts or fitness accounts
Yep.
or whatever. But a lot of time there's some great social, like YouTube strategy content
Yes.
on YouTube. And so that's where, there's Colin and Samir on YouTube. There's Think
Yep.
Media. You pointed me in those two
Yep.
directions.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time looking at them, and then just like trying to find content that adds value to my life. I'm a big Simon Sinek fan.
Yep.
Um, And, there's just some of the bigger podcasts, it definitely, anytime Joe Rogan has somebody interesting, then I hop into that. So,
Yep.
but I think like back to your original question, from a pure marketing perspective, I think it's Donald Miller and Gary Vaynerchuk and recently Stephen Bartlett that are the
Yep.
three people that
Yeah.
come top of mind when you ask that question.
Yeah. It's good, man. It's one of the things that I love as we have conversations, and where I expect a lot of the conversations here on the podcast to go, is I will sometimes, often, I'm not a details guy, and so I love to talk big picture and philosophical. You like to get into the tactical and like, yeah, but how does this work? Like how did you exactly do that? How did you exactly, and like one of the conversations I love having with what we did together at Resurrection is like, let's really analyze the thumbnails, and is this font or this font, or like it's part of the science is getting into the tactical, because I think so often, and I think and I would say almost the flaw of StoryBrand is it's very philosophical, and it's hard in branding to get into the tactical, but you've got to translate of like, people are always like, oh, let's just tell stories. And at the end of the day, when it comes to our pastors, and I say our pastors, our preachers, great storytellers, like they have an art to what they're doing. It's our job often to, when it comes to social media, to then figure out, how do we package this? Should sermon clips be 45 seconds or a minute and a half? Should they have captions, and how big should those captions be? We've got to get into, I think, the tactical to be most effective. And what are those things that are going to move things 3%, with better engagement? And how do we follow it? How do we move people? As one of the things we talked about, in our time together, is how do we consistently move people to their deepest level of engagement with our ministry, and not just get them to watch a video. Because so many times we're just obsessed with how many followers can we get, how many video views can we get. But when it comes to ministry in church, our job is to get people in community and in fellowship and in discipleship community. And so we can't just stop at virality. And so we want to look at, how do we get our content in front of more people, but then also how do we move them? And so I'm excited for you to dig in with various ministry leaders or non-ministry leaders that we want to bring in some insights for ministry leaders on this podcast. And so I'm looking forward to digging in. One of the things, Matt, you have pushed me towards is you are an AI guy. And you, not just AI, I have been a ChatGPT guy as my primary AI tool, but you have pushed me in the Claude path. Tell me about Claude. What is it about Claude that you love so much, and what took you down the Claude train versus the traditional ChatGPT lane?
I love that question. So, full transparency, like I'm probably 85% Claude. And then if I'm like working on content, and then 10 to 15% ChatGPT. Sometimes I'll have two tabs open and just compare. Yep. And then for anybody listening, if you're not using Perplexity, which is another tool, that's my 9 out of 10 times, instead of Googling now, I go to Perplexity. So that's a little bit
talk about what is Perplexity. It's not as common as ChatGPT or Claude.
Yeah, it's based on my understanding and how I use it. It's an AI-driven like internet search curation tool.
Okay.
So I'll search.
And is it a domain? You go to perplexity.com, or how do you
Perplexity.ai? Yep. And I just use the free account. I got an app on my phone, but it's like, I'll like here, I'm a Chiefs fan. So it's like, if I want to know what happened with Xavier Worthy's shoulder, I could go to Google and then start clicking through links, or I go to Perplexity and say, like, what's the latest update on Xavier Worthy's shoulder injury? And what it's going to do is it's going to search videos, websites, and it's going to give you a curated response. And as always with AI, you want to, double check that, but basically curates the internet based using AI and large language models based on what you're searching for, and gives you a curated response, which I really enjoy.
Interesting. And better than Gemini. Because I do that with Google, but then Gemini gives a response typically at the top of Google.
So for one of these days, I need to dive back in, but like, I haven't touched Gemini in a long time.
Okay.
for about a year ago when I first started really trying to figure out how to use AI for my job,
Yeah.
it was like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude.
Yeah.
And I'll just be honest, because maybe it's changed, but the whole gosh, what was it? They called it some gate, but like Gemini, like a year ago, if you said like generate an image of a
Yeah.
Scandinavian Viking,
Yeah.
it like
Yeah.
refused to give you an image of white skinned people.
Yep.
And
Yep.
when that's just literally like Scandinavian people, their complexion is what it is.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
objective.
Yep.
And that scared me because what I'm trying to pay attention to and nervous about is if who's behind the scenes of AI and controlling what you see.
Yep.
Because if AI is genuinely just crawling the internet um, then like but it's giving me the good, the bad, and the ugly and everything in
Yep.
between. Well, then I can use my brain and kind of cipher through that.
Yeah.
But so, and that's a good segue too, because what brought me to Claude,
Yeah.
kind of back to your question,
Yeah.
is there's a couple of features of Claude that in my role drew me there. Number one, I think Claude writes the most human.
Yep.
So ChatGPT's gotten way better, I will say that.
Yep.
But but Claude, I think, writes the most human. This is very anecdotally, so you know, don't get mad at me if my information is wrong, but my understanding of the origin of Claude, which is owned by Anthropic, is it was a lot of people that were in on the early, they were part of starting ChatGPT, and they didn't like where ChatGPT was going from a privacy standpoint, so they spun up their own thing. And that's an appealing narrative to me. And then the other thing with Claude that I really like, and it kind of gets into where I think AI is truly a superpower, a pretty safe superpower, is Claude has a project framework in it where you can spin up projects for specific things. So at Resurrection, I have a Adam Hamilton podcast project. I have an engagement team project. I have, if we're doing a women's conference, I can spin up a project, and then you can give that project custom instructions. You can upload project knowledge documents, and then what you can do is you can live in this space to where now, because I've been doing it for the better part of a year, the Adam Hamilton podcast project, it knows what I want out of it.
Yep.
So I can turn the transcript of Adam's podcast into the YouTube description, the website copy, the promotional email, and the social media posts. And before getting into editing, I mean, I can have that marketing collateral in about 10 minutes. Once I have the transcript. And this is kind of gets into where AI is astonishingly good, and where I think as ministry leaders or nonprofit leaders, or anybody listening, where I would say, if you're not leaning into, you really, really need to be, is like when you give AI what to work with, like when you control what it's working with, it is absolutely astonishingly good. Like it is like a transcript of a sermon, a transcript of a podcast. Like if you write a talk or you give a speech or something, you upload the transcript, and then when you tell AI, hey, help me summarize this in 50 words, help me turn this into a 250 word blog post, you're giving it the content to work with, and then you're coaching it on the tone and the voice and the style. And then it's just masterful, because those are things as humans that we can do. A pastor can write a 50-word excerpt of the sermon. They can turn their sermon into they can summarize it in 500 words. That's going to take you 2 hours. With AI, it can take you 10 minutes. And there's an efficiency that is an opportunity there, because what we want to do as ministry leaders specifically is like, we want to help people find and follow Jesus. And to do that, we need to like try to reach as many people as possible. And if you can take a 2-hour task and turn that into a 20-minute task, then that's an hour and 40 minutes of time that you can devote to all the other areas that are really important with your ministry.
100%.
To do the things that social media and AI can't do, like go be with people. And so that's where AI is is really important. We're going to talk about how to use it on this podcast.
Yeah.
With Amplify, we're working on a course.
Yeah.
I'm by no means like, I couldn't tell you the mechanics of how a large language model works,
Yep.
but I literally use it every day, and it's allowed me in my job to do more better.
Yep.
Which ultimately, this isn't a competition. There's not a scoreboard, but like,
Yeah.
Our world is broken.
Yeah.
And God's calling us to be a part of making it unbroken, to restoring it to its wholeness, to its intended wholeness. And the more we can do, that's the more opportunities we have to reach somebody and maybe help them find and follow Jesus and see their life changed.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah. And with social media, especially, and like the volume game, the quality of the game, the context specific game,
Yep.
AI can be a superpower. So I'm learning. I'm not gonna pretend like I'm like the absolute expert, but I can tell you I'm literally using it every day. And so I'm excited to have those conversations with other leaders and then just bring any learnings that we can find.
Yeah. I love it. It's it's going to be fun. I mean, I think there's always something new every day. You have turned me on to Claude and I'm using it more and more. ChatGPT is still probably my go-to on everyday stuff, but copywriting especially. And I think even to that tension, and I think it's a tension that we're going to talk about, is people feel like, is this taking our jobs? And of course it's going to take some of our jobs in different ways, but what it's going to allow us to do is allocate our resources to what only we can do. And I think, I think ChatGPT is going to be a great sermon assistant. It doesn't need to be writing your sermons, and it for sure doesn't need to be preaching your sermons, and it doesn't need to be doing your pastoral care, but it can be an assistant to help you. So I think it's an assistant to help you do things more efficiently, so that you can do and allocate resources in your ministry to do the things that you need to be doing with people and in community. And so we're going to talk more and more about those things. Matt, I am so fired up for where we're going with this podcast. I'm fired up about your leadership. I'm grateful for your friendship, and I'm excited about where we're going. We'll talk more about Amplify social media in future podcasts and some of the unique different things that we're doing there. But I do want to just put a plug in there of, if you need help with social media, just getting it done. That's why Amplify social media exists. We talk a lot about the strategies here, the tactics here. And a lot of times people have come to me through the years and said, that's great. I don't know. I can't do it. I need some help getting it done. And we built a team, and we're pretty transparent about this. In the Philippines, we have a vision to create jobs in the Philippines, and take these strategies that we have developed, and apply them efficiently for the ministry partners that we work with. So if you want some help with your social media, I'd encourage you to reach it. You can go to amplifysocial.media, or just reach out to Matt directly. I want to tell you a little bit about what I'm working on too. I'll give you, that'll take just a couple minutes. Matt, though, where are you? You mentioned X, you mentioned Instagram. What's the best place for people to connect with you online?
So I think the best places for me is if you go to LinkedIn. Like, that's probably where I'm going to be, where I am and will be most active in terms of like conversations, especially with ministry and nonprofit leaders. LinkedIn's the best place to connect. I'm on X and Instagram pretty much daily. I just don't post there. So you're welcome to give me a follow there, but literally you'll see like there's nothing there. I'm a consumer and a learner on there.
Yeah.
But LinkedIn is the platform where I am and will be putting out content.
Love that. Yeah. So lean in, look Matt up on LinkedIn, connect with him there. I'd love for you to follow me on LinkedIn as well. It is where I'm most active. And some of that is because of what I'm doing now. And so I am I say new, it's now 7 months, but VP of marketing for Faith Driven Entrepreneur. We actually have a number of brands. But where for this conversation, what I want to highlight is we have launched a brand called pastorsandentrepreneurs.org. And what our belief is pastors partnering with entrepreneurs are the most powerful force to change the world. And that there's lots of complexities to that, but we put together a research study with Barna that really talks about this. And I think one of the tensions that pastors have often had is we don't know how to effectively support entrepreneurs in our community, and entrepreneurs often don't know where they fit in their church. They don't, they're working so much they don't fit into natural volunteer opportunities. They often just kind of function as an ATM of like when we need extra capital, but at the end of the day, they're creating jobs. They're trusted in the community. We need entrepreneurs to integrate their faith into their work, and they often aren't trained effectively through their church. So we created a free course. We create free resources. It's all free. And it is literally just to support you in better serving entrepreneurs in your church. And one of the things I keep telling people is like, they're like, well, what's the catch? We're not, and I love what Dave Ramsey does and what others do with Financial Peace University or what Alpha does with their course. And I think that's free as well. I don't know exactly, but it's a lot like the Alpha course where it's for, we call it the Faith Driven Entrepreneur Foundations course, but it's for you to really help entrepreneurs integrate faith into their work. And so we just want to help you do that because we believe that supporting entrepreneurs through the church is where we're going to have the greatest effectiveness. So that's what I'm up to these days. It is a labor of love, and I'm going to keep sharing of digging deep into HubSpot, digging deep into our YouTube channel just passed 100,000 subscribers, and some of the learnings I'm having with that. And I have my hands in the dirt. I've been a consultant the last 10 years, and now back into hands in the dirt in a nonprofit role that's serving churches rather than in the church role that I previously did at Community Bible Church. And so I am excited to share from my learning. So I will be a regular guest here on the podcast, but I am excited to pass the baton to Matt and for him to lead the way from here. Matt, any final words where we wrap up your first podcast episode?
Yeah, I'm excited, and it's going to be an ongoing conversation. And the advantage we have with a podcast about social media is it changes so freaking much that like we're going to have plenty of stuff to talk about all the time.
100%.
And honestly, that's one of the values that we want to bring is like we want to do some of the work in terms of research and curating and learning and just save you some time. Yep. So that'll be a huge value for us. But I think the parting words that I know will be a recurring theme is if you're and I'm thinking specifically of a church leader or a pastor right now, but if you have a conversation with one person, let's say you do 15, 20 minutes of prep work, somebody's going through something, you have one conversation with them, you spend 30 minutes, maybe an hour with them. Yep. If that conversation makes a difference in their lives, the question for a ministry leader is, was that worth your time? Mm-hmm. And I think any ministry leader would say yes. Like you add in prep plus the time, like let's call it 2 hours. Yep. Is 2 hours of your time worth the opportunity to make an impact on one person's life? And I think we wouldn't flinch or hesitate to say yes when it's coffee in person or a meeting at the church. What I want to offer is what if a social media post could be the thing that makes an impact on somebody's life? Yeah. Because we're going to talk about how to play the game because we have a message that matters and we want the whole world to hear it. So we're going to play the game. And also, you spend 2 hours. That's an aggressive amount of time on one social media post. But you spend 2 hours, and that post literally makes an impact on 5-10 people. Yep. Is that worth your time?
Yep.
I think the answer is yes. I mean, it's social media ministry, and that ministry mindset is, I think, going to be a foundation of how we look at this because it is challenging, it is frustrating, it is cool, but that ministry mindset is, I think, the thing that I'm excited to really dive into because people are on social media. They are going to consume it. Yep. It is human behavior in 2025. The question is, as the church, as the people of God, working for the glory of God, how often can we be in their feeds? And just see what God does with it.
Well said. We will end the podcast with that word. Matt, thank you. Can't wait to see what God does with this podcast and through this podcast in the days ahead. Thanks everyone for joining us. We'll talk to you again on the next episode.